Now I want to do a thought experiment here. And the thought experiment is, what would heal Donald Trump? What treatment could Donald Trump receive that could change the way he is? Now, what I'm talking about here, what I'm talking about healing here, is healing his underlying disposition. I'm not talking about any degenerative issues that might be happening with him in terms of dementia and other things. We don't know that exactly what's going on there. We don't know, the extent to which that can be diagnosed. So I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is his underlying disposition, which we know is one of basically disinhibition. His inability to filter things in the way that the rest of us can. His way of sort of talking off the hoof and just coming up with what he feels in any one moment at any one time without actually thinking it through or being strategic or measured in his utterances. So, what is it that could change that about Donald Trump? I'll conduct a thought experiment in this video. Of course, none of this are things that could ever really happen because Donald Trump would never have enough self-awareness or insight to seek treatment. So he would never actually go for treatment for anything like this. But let's just create an imaginary world so we can run this thought experiment. If Donald Trump sought treatment, if he came to somebody, an expert like myself, in order to get some support for some of his issues in terms of how he thinks and how he operates, then I'm going to talk about what could be done in that scenario. Now, one of my favourite psychiatrists of all time is a man called Dr. Viktor Frankl. You may have heard of him. He wrote one of the most inspiring books actually ever written, as far as I'm concerned, called Man's Search for Meaning. It was a truly moving account of his harrowing experience in the Holocaust. He's a survivor of the Holocaust. And he had the most awful experience, of course, in that horrendous trauma. But what he did is he kind of turned it into something productive, in that he tried to understand himself and the people around him and what he could learn about human nature from that. And there's a really excellent quote in his book, which basically says that between stimulus and response is a space. And essentially within that space is where all the change can happen. So between stimulus and response is a space. And what he means is that we'll get stimulated by the outside world, by things that happen to us, by occurrences around us, by the environment that surrounds us. That's the stimulus, right? And then we respond to that stimulus, okay? Now, the thing is, there's a little space, and a space that we can build between that stimulus and the response. We can either respond in a knee-jerk way, what comes to us straight away, which might be as a result of our conditioning, our upbringing, our reptilian brain. All these things are sort of ready to trigger off. Or, the space could lead us to be more contemplative, be more measured, be more thoughtful in the way that we respond. So he's talking about that little space between the stimulus and the response is where the whole world of change happens in our behavioral world and in mental health. And so that is a really good lens through which to see this, to understand Donald Trump and his issues. Because the issue with Donald Trump is that there's almost no space between stimulus and response. He gets stimulated and he responds immediately. Just think about times recently when journalists have asked him uncomfortable questions, have said things that he doesn't want to hear, and instead of being measured in his response, instead of trying to understand where they're coming from, instead of trying to give them something, instead of trying to be authoritative or statesmanlike, he just jumps straight in to sort of an angry diatribe against them. He calls them terrible people, how they're awful, they're terrible at their job, their organization's terrible. He just goes into a whole tirade of insults, which no president in history has ever done. In fact, no world leader really ever does this. But he has no gap between the stimulus and the response. So, the best prescription I would give for somebody like Donald Trump is to be able to create a space between the stimulus and the response, so that you can actually have a little bit of time to filter and to contemplate what is the best way for me to respond to the situation. Now, the best way for us to build that space, that muscle, if you like, that enables us to sort of step back a little bit, is mindfulness. Mindfulness meditation. So I'm a mindfulness meditation teacher. I practice it and teach it for many years, decades now, in fact. And that's the best way I know, and the best way we know in the world of mental health, to actually help us to deepen that space between stimulus and response. And it applies to all of us, right? We all get stimulated by the environment and the world around us. And the best way that we can really help ourselves is to be able to create that space where we can then choose how we respond to that event rather than doing it reflexively or reactively. And mindfulness meditation helps us to just be present with the stimulus, just notice it, and develop this observer muscle that then enables us to then respond how we wish to and what would be most beneficial to us. This was discovered by another great psychologist, which is what I say he really is, which was the Buddha. And this was several thousand years ago. The Buddha sat under a tree and did something called meditation. And that's how he learnt about his own mind. Unlike a lot of the research we do today, like I've just finished a large study looking at the effects of certain treatments on 500 patients, Buddha actually did an experiment on one patient, on himself. And he looked at his own mind, and that was actually extremely powerful because it helped him understand how he could create that space between stimulus and response within himself. And it was all about just noticing all the thoughts and emotions that come up within us. So we have stimulus coming out to us from the world or from our things we remember, or things that are going on right now. And then we have these responses being generated within us. And the act of mindfulness meditation is just to notice the responses. Not try and stop them or push them away, but not act on them or verbalize them or externalize them either. Just be present with them and notice them. And if we can notice our responses, then it gives us enough space to choose the best one. And that makes us far more effective, makes us far more strategic, and it can make us far more compassionate too, because we're doing what we consider to be aligned with our values, the right thing by ourselves and by other people. So mindfulness meditation is really about actually just being present with whatever responses are arising within us, just noticing them all the time. And you just sit down for a few minutes and just notice whatever's bubbling up in you. It's basically what it involves. There are different ways of doing it, different sort of techniques involved, and you can find many of those resources online. And that's how we broaden that space and become better at the way we act and move and conduct ourselves in the world. That is something obviously that Donald Trump will never benefit from because he will never do. Okay, we know he would never seek the help and he would never be able to do anything like this. But that doesn't mean the rest of us can't, right? I continue with my practice. It's always a challenge because there's always life that gets in the way. There's always stresses that stop us from sitting on the cushion. But whenever we can, it makes a huge difference. I recommend that absolutely. In fact, the latest book that I've just released this month is about exactly that, mindfulness in the chaos. You can have a look at my book store, russellsbooks.com, and in that store you will find the book Mindfulness in the Chaos. And you'll find it, as I say, at russellsbooks.com. Do go along and you can buy it there. If you're a member of this channel, then you get it for free. All members of the channel get all of the books that I produce. It's delivered by me and my team, with help from technology to really make an excellent edition there. And so, as I say, if you're not a member yet, you can join. You can get it for free, just like the other books. They're all on that bookstore. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you've learned something from this. As I say, the point isn't really to try and give Donald Trump advice and heal him, because we know that's never going to happen. But we can still take some of that advice for ourselves. And that ultimately is what all my books are about, really, trying to help us navigate the deeply challenging, unpredictable and chaotic world we're in today. And things like mindfulness can make all the difference in being able to do that. I hope you like my video. As a psychiatrist who loves politics and economics and philosophy, I love to make videos like this, and you can really help promote this video to other people and get it on your feed more by liking and commenting and subscribing to the video as well. We have a wonderful community of people here who comment and support each other through this very traumatic period of world history that we're going through right now. I also hope you consider becoming a subscriber to the channel and also subscribing to my e-newsletter. There's a link in the description, and that way we can stay in touch outside the channel, so you can keep abreast of all of the content that I'm making on an ongoing basis. The latest of which actually is my latest book called We the People. Very, very proud of this book. It's actually a novel, a fiction book written by myself and the famous award-winning author T.J. McGregor. Together we wrote a book about what the future might look like. Bit of a dystopian novel, but what might happen if autocracy goes to its next stage, AI predicting the potential end of humanity. I actually made a video about that, it really happened. And how things might pan out in this dystopian world, and actually how a band of committed, passionate, progressive people manage to change the trajectory, and not in the way that you think. It's not just by running a candidate and opposing the autocrat, but actually by deepening the democracy that we have and engaging in a real participatory form of democracy that sort of shifts the needle and gets us back to basics and helps us sort of rebuild our democracy. And that's within the context of a really compelling, gripping story, a bunch of fascinating characters, and I assure you, you will not be able to sort of stop turning the page until you get to the end of the book. That's what all the reviewers have said so far. Lots of people love it, and I hope you can get it. You can get it on Amazon, any of the global Amazon bookstores out there. Please do order your copy of We the People. Just put We the People Russell Razak and you'll be able to find it inside Amazon as well. Also, I hope you consider becoming a member of the channel. You can subscribe to a couple of different membership levels. All members of the channel also get some free ebooks that I produce once a month. You can buy those ebooks too from russellsbooks.com. That's russellsbooks.com, and every month I produce a new ebook on that channel, which is really about, these are the non-fiction books I produce with my team, which is really about how to learn about the world around us and the psychologies of the people who govern us, but also how to learn about ourselves, deepen our own self-awareness in a way that helps us navigate this difficult world we're in right now. So those are sort of self-help books that are produced every month, and if you're a member of the channel, you get a sort of 100% discount on those books every month. Otherwise, you can go to russellsbooks.com, as I say, and buy them anytime you like. I really hope you can become a part of this community, as I say. So this sort of supportive community, validating and helping each other, is really worth being a part of, and I hope you can join us as we all join forces to create a better tomorrow together. Thank you.